president. Who will be the president? I mean, didn't it hit you at the time that, how are you so certain about that, you know? Huh? Because they knew she'd been anointed. Nobody counted on Trump going around the media directly to the public with his tweets and everything else, and they underestimated the American people and the Canadian people, who I respect, the ability to look through the bullshit that's coming out of the media. I mean, after a while, all peoples do that. The German people recognize it. They listen to what? They listen to the BBC during the war. The Germans did it illegally because they could believe the BBC. They didn't have to believe their own people. Well, you guys do that too. Yeah? I do. So, Scalia, by his death, pretty much guaranteed that Hoover would be able to nominate 2 Supreme Court justices that are part of all of this, and for 100 years, which means infinity, this country is over, and much of the world is over with it. And I am not exaggerating that. That's why I'm speaking out now, because it's going to be too late next year to the next meeting. Whatever's happening, I've been telling people for a year, stop waiting for this damn paper to come out. The bad guys put it in there in the first place. And even now they're not releasing it. And Trump is paralyzed. He's the bravest man I know in the world, he and his family, because I've been in the same position. He knows he and his family can be taken out. Well, let me tell you, I confronted, back when El Chapo put a $100 million bounty on his head, both the Secret Service and the FBI. I mean, as soon as I heard that, first I tried to contact the Secret Service, and it was about 3 minutes after 5 in Richmond. And the field officer closed down, so I got right to the nighttime duty officer in D.C. And I said, I need to see you guys right now. Okay, at that point, the FBI was reportedly investigating whether it was a credible threat that El Chapo would put a $100 million bounty on its head. I had useful, raw intelligence that was time sensitive to give on how money is laundered in Mexico from the cartels to the presidencia. This whole thing about building a wall has not one thing to do with immigration. It has to do with drugs going one way and drug money going the other. How do I know? Because I did special operations that ended the drug flow from Colombia to Florida. Remember the cigarette boats and the airplanes? You know what we did there? We shot them all down. We sank them all. We killed all the crews. And I know I'm being recorded. I'm telling you, that's what we did. So they had to find a different route, and they hooked up with some of the Mexican companies with a couple of stops on the way, or cartels. And the fighting in Mexico is between the cartels that are linked to Colombia and those aren't. But the presidencia is tied to the same cartels because they would have been broke a decade ago if it weren't for the money they make off the drugs. The 3 sources of income to Mexico have all dried up: tourism, oil, and the remittances from foreign nationals, legal and illegal, back there because we had the recession at the same time. That's why they have to stop Trump building a wall. They don't care about the Mexican citizens. Are you kidding me? I lived down there 8 years. They'll take you back to the police station and beat you to death. And I worked with the Mexican government when I was down there. Not for anybody, not for pay. And when I left, the Supreme Court of the state of Jalisco invited me to their annual golf outing as a thank you. I'm not a flunky. I'm involved at the top with all these people. And one other thing happened before I left. I was offered 2 deals to launder money to Pemex that amounted to $1 billion. And the way it's done, suppliers to Pemex for helicopter services and for longshore oil leverage. The cartel money goes to them to buy that equipment. The obligation is one of the Mexican government. They've laundered money. I know everywhere where they launder money in Mexico, because I'm one of the people that helped close them down everywhere else in the world. I've worked with Kroll, I've worked with all sorts of people you don't even know. That's why I've had 3 bombings, 2 kidnapping attempts, and 3 mafia families in my lifetime. I'm still here. You know why I'm here? Because I was invaluable to the American military-industrial complex. I worked for the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, Office of the President, Defense Security Assistant Secretary, DIA, 3 minutes left. And those people wouldn't let Richard Helms kill me. But he threatened me directly. I was investigating all the killings he was doing. This is what we're up against. I've got 3 minutes left, or I guess. And this is such a huge topic. I'm just talking it for you. Someone earlier in the last presentation or two talked about the Russian appraisal of the assassination. There it is. I've got it translated. I can tell you the name of the operation, which is Operation Zipper, to assassinate Kennedy. And right here, I can read you all the policy statements that were written on why they were going to take him out and everything that's going on. This was in the public domain at one point. And like everything else, it's overlooked. Almost everything you need to know, if you know where to look, is in the public domain. I like to use this analogy. In aerospace, and I'm a specialist in aerospace, you can make an anvil fly if the engine is powerful enough to push it. Okay? These guys in the CIA who had been amateurishly practicing regime change through the 50s and screwed up royally, they didn't know what the hell they were doing from JFK or Cabell. You know all the interconnectivity. All right? They had the greatest engine in the world. They had the presidency, the CIA, the FBI, the media, the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They had everybody. So they didn't have to be careful. They knew it would all be controlled by Lyndon Johnson. But Lyndon Johnson wasn't ultimately the guy in charge. Right now you'll see efforts, if you know how to look at it, by the CIA to cap this off and not even go as far as LBJ, because if they know it, you get to LBJ, you're only one step away from the Bilderbergers and the Rockefellers and all the families that control all these resources. Remember, I'm number one in the world in financing trade, and I minored in petrology, study of rocks, land formation. I know a lot. Okay? I was at Soros's table in New York when Kennedy, he was dead, won the war with Bishop Tudo. And Ted Kennedy came over and sat down with Soros and myself, and the presidents of Equator Bank and Meridian Bank, the only two merchant banks in sub-Saharan Africa, and I was the only source of funding to those two banks. And Soros's wife, her hobby was rocks. So I'm one of the few people in the world who could sit down in a black tie affair and talk about rocks. You know? And Ted Kennedy comes over and I shake hands with him. His hand was like a sponge. He's such an alcoholic. Horrible, he went to sleep. And, I dedicated my life to trying to, even though I was off the detail when he was killed, I wanted to get the people that did it. And I am right now. Okay? But I didn't like the Kennedys, and I don't like them now. But I don't want the President of the United States, even if it was Obama, being assassinated. Even if it was Hillary Clinton, I don't want her assassinated. We need to be a country of laws. 3 times I've sworn an oath of allegiance to the Constitution. One would have bound me for life. All right, I've used up more of my 3 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, Gordon Ferrie.
You want to look at the document? Yeah. And Operation Zipper?
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a 6-minute break and we'll come back and hear Judith Ferrie.
One other thing, and the ownership of the New York Fed, which happens to match what we're talking about. The same people. You got to buy the Fed back. The legacy for Kennedy, enact everything he was trying to do.
Wow.